I promised to show you something. Why this circle, which is exactly the same height and width of this square, looks smaller. Why is that? How can that be? It's mathematically exactly the same. Well, it's because it's visually not exactly the same. We centered these two things perfectly. Which one looks like it's closer to the edge? The square has this relative area. The circle has the exact same distance from this point over to here, but doesn't this look like a lot more space than this? This is mathematically centered. These are mathematically the same size. Visually, another story is being told. Every time I launch No Man's Sky, I see the Hello Games logo, and I cringe every single time going, how could a company that could make this epic game create such a hideous logo? This is beyond amateurish. This is ridiculous. Look at the H and the E. Which letter is bigger? Look at them. One letter is obviously bigger than the other. I'm going to zoom in. This is a JPEG, so things get fuzzy. Doesn't the E look bigger than the H? Well, number one, it's wider. Look at how much horizontal space that E takes up, and that H seems to be tinier. But also look at the height of the H. That H is exactly the same height as that E. See it? Let me zoom in for you. They're the same height, right there. Because that circle reaches to the exact same point as that horizontal line, as do the L's. The E looks larger when we look at this as at actual size, and I'm going to hide that guide. Okay, you see that? That's crime number one. Look at the gap between the G and the A. We're not going to talk about the relative size and the problems that are there too. Look at this gap right here. Look at the gap between the H and the E. And then look at the M and the E. This says hell space O G space aims. This kerning is so bad, the letter forms are so terribly designed, and this logo, what the heck is that thing? I am embarrassed for the company. And now you should see why that O looks smaller, because it's the exact same height. If we select that O, and I don't just want to pull it from a side, I don't just want to resize it randomly, I want to hold down Option and just make it a little bit bigger. Do they look closer to the same size now? And the answer is yeah, they look a lot closer. Are they perfectly? No. Optically? No. I'd need to noodle with this. But this has gone on long enough. I want you to be able to see that, yes, that H does not look as tall as that E. You know? And also the L and the O, same thing happens there. It's actually smaller. A first-year design student wouldn't make these mistakes after a little instruction about relative size. Now, as far as the kerning goes, this horrible gap here and here, you know, and still, these two letters, the M and the E, are closer together than the E and the S. Do you see it? The H and the E are closer together than the E and the L. And then the L and the L, that's a whole nother problem. And this horizontal line shouldn't be that long because it's shoving this out, especially when you consider the width of the H. So there's a little heads up on typography, but the most important thing is understanding relative sizes. I'm going to undo that so it's back to the exact same size. And then let's see if Shift-Command-Z redoes. It does. So we can pop it back out. Okay, I cut a lot of bumbling and stumbling. To finish up, I changed this to 620 rather than 623. Better balanced. It's, not quite exactly perfect, but you get the idea that the circle is slightly larger than the square. And if I group these two and center them like I've already done, so you can see it's exactly center, it's not really exactly center. It sits low and to the left. So if we group these two things and then just nudge it up a little bit, then move it a little bit more. I'm going to shift, right arrow in order to move it. So now this is actually closer to the edge, but we're trying to establish visual balance, not mathematical balance. And we have to take into account the amount of negative space off to the side. There's far more to the right of the circle. And this is the same strategy you use when kerning letters, even hideously made letters like these. So there's a little preview into typography and a little lesson on relative size.